me into helping out this year, and Danielle jumped on board to help me do it too. I am a pediatric physical therapist, and I work for the Department of Public Health over in Santa Clara County. Yeah, so safety was kind of the one thing that I felt like I had a background in anyway, so that's kind of why I took it on. Let me go back. So just wanted to thank you guys all for volunteering. We can't run without you, like Eric said. So it is an important position on the teams. So thanks again for all the volunteers. If you guys have any questions, like when we're going through the content. So if it's directly related and it's a quick question, just raise your hand icon, Danielle, you can help me manage that, or just unmute yourself and just ask it quickly. Otherwise, just type it in the chat box, and then I will pause halfway through, and we can address those at the middle section of the presentation, and then at the end.
I remember that. Would you like to eat this? No, I'm not.
All right. All right, Joy, go to the next one for me. Next one. Oops. So sorry guys, I'm trying to pull up my notes. So Danielle and I, this is our both our cell phones and our safety officer email. Let me see. We want you guys to save that. So go ahead, write down our cell phones, it's fine. Write down our email and then just save that information. So we're here to support you guys. So if something comes up from the manager, from a parent, from a volunteer, we want you guys to be the main person as a contact for them. And then we are here to support you. Next one. So let's talk about CPR and AED training. Ideally, we have a coach or a manager or a safety officer from each team so that somebody is present with every practice and every game, every scrimmage that is CPR certified. Joy had answered this in the past presentation that it's unlikely that somebody from both teams wouldn't be CPR certified. So as long as during a game, one person from either team is CPR certified, that would be great. If needed, we will cover a CPR class at Above the Bar CPR in Soquel. We have 2 dates set aside right now, 2 evenings in March for a combo class. So it would be an independent study and then a 1 hour in-person skills where you would actually go into the office and complete your skills section. If you could, I don't know, in the chat, I was just kind of wondering how many of us are CPR certified, because we're trying to narrow down the numbers of how many classes we're going to have to offer and how many people are CPR certified, and how many are we maybe going to have to register. You guys could also, if you already are CPR certified, please email Danielle and I at the safety officer link with a copy of your card. Please don't send a copy of your work badge. I am also a licensed physical therapist. I cannot renew my license without being CPR certified. However, the actual CPR card is what we need, not a copy of your work ID or like your license. But thanks for understanding that. I know it's kind of an issue. It has been an issue in the past, but since I'm new and Danielle's new, I'd rather just say we need your copy of your CPR card. The other thing I wanted to say is if you already are CPR certified and you'd like to take a peek at our specific AED, we have 2. One is at the Majors Field, right, Joy? And then the other one, there is one at Mountain School. When I tested the batteries at the start of our season, it has a pediatric key, which is different than the one from my work. All of them are a little bit different. They're all self-automated. They kind of walk you through it. but it did have a key to change the wattage if you were going to use it on a pediatric patient versus an adult patient. And there's also one set of pads. So there's not like a pediatric pad and an adult pad. You would use the same pads. And for those of us that already have had the training, the pads just would go on a kid, and a front and anterior and a posterior pad, versus an adult, it would be both on the chest. So if you feel like I want to look at that, I'd be happy to show you guys if anybody wants to see our specific AED. That would be no problem.
And Kate, the AED is in the closet next to that's on the side of the snack shack.
Right.
So it's the same place where there's the bathroom key and ice packs and
yeah. Joy, do you know if that code already changed? Because it was 1, 2, 3, 4 when I used it, but did we just change all of them?
I think that one we did not. I could be wrong.
Okay. And the other thing that's true about that AED, there's no alarm on that, the case that the AED is located in. A lot of times when you open the case for an AED, like an alarm goes off. This one, it was disabled. It doesn't mean that it's not working. I checked it, so it's definitely working. Safety supplies. We have plenty of refills. Please, at your first practice, just go through your first aid kits and let me know if there's anything that you would like more of. We definitely can get you more. I know we already had one incident this week at a practice where a coach needed an ice pack and he said there were no ice packs in his first aid kit. So please double check that and we can get that to you. Field equipment and safety. This is going to be the job of everybody, not just the managers, but like the assistant coaches, teach the kids, parent volunteer, safety officer for sure. Check the fields, especially if we had a lot of rain. I doubt we will, but if we had, or if there's been, in a couple of weeks, the fields are going to be getting used every day. So just check to make sure before practices and before games for sure. All equipment should be inspected, helmets, bats, prior to the games. Umpires, if you're in a division that has the umpires, they will be looking at it too. Bats need to be Little League approved. There is online resources to determine what equipment is approved, specifically about bats and helmets. Common sense stuff, like they shouldn't really be wearing jewelry during the game. If kids have glasses, we would encourage the parents to give them some kind of like sports glasses or safety glasses or face guards to protect the metal rimmed glasses. If you find any equipment that's defective or damaged, please remove it. Don't let the kids continue to use it. And then the other thing is the chin guards on the helmets. That must be manufactured that way. We don't want you to use a helmet that has an aftermarket add-on. Okay. The L screens used for when for coach pitch. That's what that's talking about, just to protect the coach. Bats and helmet safety. Helmets obviously are required for all batters. We try not to have the kids share them, if everybody could have their own helmet, but coaches do have, especially in the younger divisions, not all T-ballers are going to have their own helmet. The coaches do have a couple of helmets. But just remember, sharing helmets, sharing hats, there is just going to be a risk for lice too, which is kind of annoying if your whole team got lice. Let's see. Oh, this was another thing. Honestly, Joy, I did not know this last year, but there is no on-deck batter circle. I consulted with Ken on this one because I didn't realize, but it is a league rule. So there's no on-deck batter circle where the batter is in the batter's box and then another kid has a bat and is warming up. So that is a league rule. We did not follow that rule last year. Sorry, Eric. I didn't know it was a rule.
Sorry, Kate, I'll just jump in real quick.
Sure.
The kids, except for the kid who's batting, the kids are not allowed to be touching a bat.
Right.
So that's a big one. So it's just on, and it's not our league rule. It's a Little League International rule. There's
okay.
No longer, nobody can touch a bat. except for the kid that batting in the upper divisions. The kid who would not be up next, but it's in the hole, so to speak, is
Yeah.
the one who picks up the bat after the kid bats and brings it back to the dugout. Coaches are also and managers are not allowed to handle bats. So it's only
Coaches.
the kid.
What about the safety officer, Eric?
They're not either. So the bats are before the game, they get in the rack, the kid grabs the bat, they go to hit, they hit,
Yeah.
they drop it, they run to first base, and the the players on deck comes and grabs the bat and brings it back to the dugout. But they don't, the umpires, Gil Courtney, who's one of our main umpire, is very strict on this.
Okay. All right, good to know. So this picture is kind of worth 1,000 words. It's a pretty shocking picture. This is the safety officer from last year's, I believe, nephew. And I got permission to be able to use it again because I remember sitting here last year being like, oh my God, I can't believe that is how bad it looks. And he was fine, but it does look horrible. And that was from a bat. So I feel like, again, reiterating to the kids, reiterating to the coaches and the parents, like there's no bats in the dugout. They should be hung on the bat holder or hung on the fence if you're at a field that doesn't have the holder. And like Eric said, they shouldn't be holding a bat unless they're up to bat. Make it a big deal to the kids and reinforce it that it's a safety issue with your players and your parents. I feel like last year, that was probably after seeing this presentation, that as the team safety officer, I was like, oh, that is not happening on my team because it's awful and it looks horrible and you would just feel so bad if it happened. So I feel like my whole purpose last year was do not let anybody get hit by a bat. And I did save 2 kids from swinging, and it was during a practice. They were just on deck, had a bat, were getting ready to bat, and then the other player walked behind them. Like they didn't even see them coming, but the other player wasn't even paying attention. So I did save 2 kids last year, and it is a thing. So we can go on from that picture because it is disturbing. Player safety, talking about the catcher's gear. So I believe that T-ball and single A do not have a catcher, but single A does this year. Last year they didn't because of COVID, but this year single A and on up has a catcher. So when they're warming up the pitchers, they must have all of their gear on. Managers and coaches, safety officer, team parent, it's all our responsibility to make sure that the kids just get used to putting the stuff on, so they must be wearing, if the boys, they should wear a cup, helmet, mask, throat protector for infield and outfield practice, and when warming up the pitchers at practice and obviously games. The chest protector and the shin guards must be on when there's a batter present. Catcher's mitt, except for farm and T-ball, the rest of, so double A on up, the catcher should have the proper mitt. Let's see, next slide, Joy, for me. So player safety, this is another, one of our roles as the safety officer is that we have to watch out for the kids. So with pitchers, we talk about pitch counts in double A, triple A on up. Watch for overuse injuries and arm fatigue. Listen to the players, let them, if they're complaining, asking for ice, stuff like that, just listen for over injuries and arm fatigue. Managers are the ones not solely responsible, but the main responsibility falls on them for ensuring adequate rest days and based on their number of pitches. We'll talk about, but there's binders in the scorekeeper sheds that have these paper. And we're also going to be using the Game Changer app this year. So the home team will be designated to use the app and the visitors will be holding the paper. Whether you're using the app or are responsible for pitch counts on both teams. Okay. The other thing I wanted, catchers must be warmed up. Catchers must warm up the pitchers. Not the coach. The coach should not be warming up pitchers. And when the catcher is warming up the pitcher, they should be wearing all of their gear. Teams must designate that person, someone to do a pitch count each game. So that's where your team parent can kind of help out a little bit too. Part of our job as the safety officers for the league is that we will also be monitoring compliance with this. And managers will receive a disciplinary action for non-compliance. Again, it's just about the kids' safety overall and their the integrity of their arm as they get playing at a higher competitive level. Pitch counts are for, like I said, AA, AAA majors in the intermediate league. The next slide is the pitch count numbers. This is from Little League too, Little League International. Our league only goes up to 13-year-olds. Next slide, Joy. This is the paper copy of our pitch count and kind of what that looks like. We are doing the scorekeeping and pitch counts on Game Changer app this year, but it's going to be, its first couple weeks is going to be a trial. We're going to see how it goes. And then once you complete for each game, the pitch count log paper form there, you're just going to leave it in the binder in the shed. Team parent, again, can help assist with completing these logs every game. There is actually going to be a scorekeepers meeting coming up for instruction on both scorekeeping and the pitch count logs. I believe next Wednesday. No, 2 Wednesdays? 3/9, 2 Wednesdays.
Yeah, it's the 9th.
The 9th at 6:30, right, Joy?
Yes.
Okay.
Steve, do you want to say something about scorekeeping?
Sure. So on the 9th, we're going to have a scorekeeping Zoom training session. We'll do a little bit of how to keep score on paper and also a little bit of how to keep score on Game Changer. We'll actually try to do a little bit of live scorekeeping on the screen on Zoom, so folks who haven't done that before can learn about it, because we'd love to get as many of our teams as possible scorekeeping on Game Changer, and also, you know, like Joy said in the team parent meeting, having a backup on paper. But from a safety perspective, the pitch count is what's really important. From a safety perspective and a Little League rule perspective, is making sure that the pitch counts are correct and that we all, each team has, you know, a couple people who really understand the pitch count rules depending on the age of the players. That's part of the scorekeeping process.
Thanks, Steve. Next slide, Joy, will do potential injuries. So obviously the most common are like the lumps and bumps from a ball, kids getting hit by a ball, taking a grounder, getting it, not catching it, and getting hit by the ball from just during play. The concussion, head injury, sliding injuries, they're definitely more uncommon, but it's like what you hear about that's more, you know, urgent need of attention, but they're definitely less frequent. Remember that concussions can occur with any type of impact trauma to the head. It can be like a player-to-player hit. If it's a bat to a head, it's an emergency, you know, immediate emergency. And the other thing is if you have not completed your online training for concussions, please do so and email us your certificates as soon as possible. I'm not going to go into the details tonight on the concussion protocol because that was what the training is for, but please reach out to me or Danielle if you have any questions or concerns after you've completed that training. I'm happy to kind of answer any questions about that for sure. The other thing is sliding practice. Remind your managers that if the kids are going to be sliding and as they get older, they really want to. So even in single A last year, we had a bunch of kids just sliding, but I remind the coaches that they really should be practicing proper technique to avoid injuries with this. All managers were sent a link to the Big Owl online training program with videos on how to teach skills like this. So that would be another good resource to just remember about. Injury reporting. So there's going to be, my next slide after this will show you how to report an injury or where to actually report it. But I want you guys to report any incident where they need, where a kid, player, so a player, manager, coach, anyone receives medical treatment and or first aid. Or if there's any injury or illness outside of baseball as reported by the parent. And this is going to fall on the safety officer. So if the coach calls you or a parent tells you, you're the one that's going to be reporting. It's a quick little form. But then the only other thing is I want to tell you, Danielle and I do not get an alert that says that one of you guys filled out a form. So I am going to ask you that if you fill out a report form, please email us to let us know, hey, this happened today, or within 48 hours of that injury. If it's a positive COVID test, immediate follow-up with us would be fantastic. I'll go into more details about the COVID exposure positive test in a few minutes. I'm sure there's going to be a couple of questions on that topic, but right now let's just continue with this and then I'll pause after that. Yeah, so email or text me, yep. And then it will be your job to also follow up. So this is once a kid is either hurt or injured, we do follow up with that parent in the next couple of days, especially if they're going to miss a practice due to it. If it's just like a lump or a bump and they need an ice pack, that's one thing. But if they did get injured enough so they ended up sitting out at practice or sitting out at a game, then you do want to follow up with them in the next couple of days. Sherry, I was the safety officer last year. I feel like she also did that. So as long as you guys are communicating with me and Danielle, we're happy to help with that as well. Yeah, okay, perfect. Just so that we know what's going on in the league. Next slide is the injury reporting form. So again, at this point, I want you guys to take out your phones if you're not on your phone already, but point towards the frame, pull up this reporting form. It will pop up. Save it to your favorites or bookmark it for easiest access, because then when you need it, you can just remember, you can find it. It's also posted on our website under the downloads or documents. That's coming up in the presentation too. But for now, just take a screenshot of this QR code. It is the easiest access. It pulls it right up.
I also put it in the chat.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so before we head into the next part of this presentation, which is the COVID-19 plan, let me take any questions. So Danielle, is there anything in the chat box, or if anybody just wants to unmute?
There was one about, I don't know if it's the same team or a different team, but the lack of ice packs at their practice and they needed them. So Mike is actually our equipment guy, and his response to that was that once the snack shack is open, the ice packs will be kept there. Until then, he said he's going to be putting them on the shelf in the cart shed so that you guys can self-replenish your first aid kits if you need more ice packs.
Okay, so there's no ice packs in any of the first aid kits. Has anybody checked their first aid kit yet? Have had practice?
Yeah, mine had one in it.
Yours had one in it. I think Chris's had two.
I've got one in mine.
Okay, so
yeah, maybe double check those and you can replenish. And
yeah,
let us
Daniel,
know.
where did you say Mike said they are right now?
On the shelf in the cart shed.
In the cart shed. Eric, what's the cart shed? Like
That
where
is,
the golf
that's
cart is?
Yes, where the golf cart is. That's on the miners field.
Okay.
So that's the yeah, we've got the two golf carts in there.
Okay.
It's the shed closest to the miners field batting cage.
So I guess
Outside.
what would be the best way to get people ice packs at this juncture, because not everybody practices there, right?
Right.
Like, is everybody around Blue Ball Park for a weekend practice? Like, could they get them on the weekend? Do you know? Steve?
I think most everybody's there.
Okay.
Everybody
some
and everybody
point.
has access to the carts. They have the codes to get in there, and so they can go
Okay.
if they need it to grab one. I realize it's an inconvenience, but yeah, I thought, if they don't have it, we need to get them one. I mean,
Yeah, I'll
the
be there
next-
Saturday. Both my kids practice, one at 9:30. The T-ball clinic's there, so I feel like Saturday there's going to be a lot of people around to go grab some ice packs.
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
Okay, cool. Any other questions?
Yeah,
I
there's
had a quick question. Sorry to unmute. We're practicing at Mountain School Elementary. We had our practice Tuesday,
Mhm.
and first pitch had a kid get blown in the nose, bloody nose, no ice pack. So wondering what the code is, because we don't practice at the fields at Blue Ball. And obviously we need to get some ice packs. What's the best way to do that?
Matt has all the codes, and so he could swing by, coming or going.
Okay, great.
You should be able to grab that. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Eric, should we put some ice packs up where the AED is there?
Yeah, I don't see any reason why we couldn't. Yeah. The biggest problem we've had is that, the ice packs, they're not super expensive, but they just disappear.
Oh,
And they're not necessarily, in the past, that's been an issue. And so, we
Okay.
run out of more ice packs than we could possibly use.
yeah.
And I do there used to be there's boxes of ice packs, and yes, I mean, that's the type of thing that just gets needs to get replenished. And so if you're, because we're an all volunteer organization, definitely if there's something that's missing, or then alert us, so that, say, we don't have ice packs, we don't have hand sanitizer, we don't have whatever's it, we don't, where is the IED? Hoot and holler, and we'll get it figured out.
a couple other questions. What about AEDs for practice locations?
My belief is that there's one at the snack shack at the main fields, and then at Mountain School, and our league only has 2. So that's where they're at. I know every school has them. Like, I know there's practice at Main Street. Main Street has an AED. I couldn't tell you where it is. But they are at our little league owns 2. That's all we have. If there was an emergency, you call 911. Yeah.
Right. Another question, is reporting required for non-player injuries, as in a spectator at a game?
I believe so, Joy. I believe it's, if somebody got hurt, we need to have a record of it. That's
That's a good question.
I think, yes. If they were attending an event for CSLL, I would say yes, they have to, the coach of, so say it was like a grandparent of like the Red Sox, I would have the Red Sox coach fill it out, or the Red Sox safety officer fill it out.
Yeah, it's a good question that we can follow up on, because it does, the incident report itself does say player name, parent, guardian name, description, intervention or outcome, and the name of the person completing the form. So it's a good question as to whether or not we're required to document for spectators.
Yeah. Definitely, if it was somebody like a coach, a parent volunteer, if it was you, any of like the staff, then yeah, player staff. We could find out. I could ask Sherry. She would probably know. She was the safety officer last year.
And it looks like, Jessica, do you still have a question, or is this a legacy hand?
Legacy hand.
Okay, a couple more. The first aid kits were given to the managers, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And
they're not very big, so check them. That the first practice, you guys have access to the coach's huge bag. check them. I mean, some of them, if they were used a ton last year, you might only have a couple of Band-Aids left. So like I said, I did not go through every single first aid kit. Mike went through to make sure everybody had at least something. But if there's something that you want more of, we definitely have it. You just got to check and then reach out.
Awesome. And then code for Mountain School to get the AED. Managers have that in the binders, I believe. Which
Yes.
have it in practice. So if
Yeah.
you want the codes, get them from your manager.
Yeah.
Good.
Last year I took a screenshot of the codes so
Perfect.
that I had it, you know.
So managers have binders. They should be with them at every practice and game, and you can get the codes from there. And yeah, good idea. Like screenshot it or make a note of them so that safety officers have them.
And remind them if they didn't bring it, they really should have it at every practice because it's got all the numbers, everything you need is in that binder. So if they're not bringing their bag, just gently remind them like they should have it at every event.
Right.
And it's also, there was a reminder that got sent out to managers about having binders at all practices and games because of the medical release forms. And there might be some late additions on your teams. And so if they don't have if you don't have a medical release form in that binder, we should make sure that every player has a medical release form in there, with all their information. I'm just going to also add, I'm going to be at the fields on Saturday for the T-ball clinic from 12:30 to 2:30. So I will look for ice packs, and if anybody wants ice packs, they can come visit me at the farm field. It'll be a ice pack day.
All set on questions anymore?
Nothing else from the chat. Quick reminder, if anybody hasn't already in the chat, there's some people that are on that haven't. If you are a safety officer, if you can put your name, your email, and what team and division you're with, that would be helpful.
And if you're CPR certified.
Yes, and I'm getting a bunch of emails, right? We are getting a bunch of emails
Yay.
right with certs, so that's great. Thanks.
Oh, cool. Yeah. All right. We are moving on to COVID-19 plan. So this was a plan that obviously was a lot more strict last year, and we've been fluid. I think Danielle and Steve and I have changed it just a few times, but just even more recently in the past week. So it's kind of been morphed from a couple of different sites: CDC, California Department of Public Health, Little League International, Santa Cruz County guidelines. But it is the manager's responsibility, as well as the safety officer, that we, kind of follow these guidelines. It's mandatory compliance for participation within our league. It's definitely, potentially going to change again. So the most recent copy of the COVID plan is posted on our website. Please read it. It's not very long. I'm not going to read it to you guys. I'll give you a little bit of an example and kind of like the rundown on it. And then let me know, reach out to us if you have any questions about it. We could go over a million scenarios, but I feel like let's just cross that bridge when it happens, and we're happy to guide you. And then on the next slide, Joy, is it'll show you where it's posted. So
in the chat.
Yeah, so it's under our main page. You're going to go to downloads. All the way at the bottom are the safety documents. That's where the safety manual, our full-on safety manual is. Danielle and I updated that for the year, so that's now going to say 2022. There's a 2022 COVID plan, and then the incident reporting link is there. And then there's also a link on concussions. That's all the way down at the downloads on our main page. Next slide, Joy. Masks. Masks are not required outside, so it's not something. Last year it was kind of a thing that masks were being recommended still outside, and they're not being recommended right now. So if you have a kid though that's on your team and the parents want them to wear a mask in the dugout because it's more of close quarters, please just support them in doing that. Okay. Next slide, Joy. Distancing, you know, same thing. It's like, we are outside, but if the kids can maintain 6 feet, great. Try not to do a ton of high fives or fist bumping, all hands in, stuff like that. Team huddles are going to be brief and limited. Again, this was kind of in the presentation from last year. I didn't want to take it out because I feel like social distancing is still a thing for some people. And also, like the equipment sharing, that's like one of the other things. Is I remember last year having like a T-ball or thinking I got to buy all of this equipment as a T-ball mom. And I feel like the coaches have a few bats, they have a few helmets. It's just wipe them down a few times if kids are going to share them. Anything else about that? Yeah. Last year, Steve, I don't know if Steve's gonna know this or, but last year I feel like if a kid needed to borrow some kind of equipment, do we have anything like that? Sherry said last year they just contacted Grant about it. If a player needs to borrow any kind of equipment, do we have stuff like
We
that?
definitely do. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mike
I thought
McGee
so.
Mike McGee's got a whole equipment shed, and he's got catcher's gear and gloves and bats, and so yeah, absolutely.
Oh, cool. Okay. So just reach out. You can reach out to me and Danielle. We can put you in the right direction if you need something for your kiddo or anything like that. You guys can borrow something. Next slide. Hand hygiene, kind of just use common sense, especially before the kids are going to like charge into team snacks after a game. We're asking that you don't share the sunflower seeds or the gum just because they're like reaching into the bag, a shared bag, then putting it in their mouth. So we're just saying that's one of the things we're telling managers, like just don't let the kids share seeds or gum. They will be selling them in the snack shack, so it's not like they can't have it. But again, gum is a thing and seeds make a mess. So if they are going to be chewing gum, make sure that they're putting it in a piece of paper or throwing it in the garbage, that it's not ending up on the bench seats or on the kids' cleats or just on the ground. Same thing with the seeds, they make a mess. So if the kids are going to be having the sunflower seeds on the dugout or on the bleachers, encourage your team to clean up after themselves. And then if gum seems to be an issue and you're finding gum, I would say no more gum, you know. That's just my 2 cents about it. We're going to try to arrange to have like a broom and a dustpan around each dugout or somewhere where you guys can easily clean up the sunflower seeds if that becomes an issue, but we really don't want them seeds everywhere. And then the other thing about like team snacks at the end of the game, you guys probably talked about this, Joy and Danielle, in the last meeting, but if they're going to hand out like team snacks and it's going to be fruit, try not to have it be something that like needs a ton of handling. So like instead of cut up orange wedges, like hand out the little clementine oranges. That's all I have to say about that.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So with the sanitizing of the bats and everything, are you saying like at practices, if we just have one bat out and they're at the tees, we sanitize it in between every couple players?
I mean, that's what we're saying. Yeah, that's
Okay.
part of the plan. But again, it's like, use
And we do
common
that
sense.
at the game
There's
as well.
wipes in every bag. There's sanitizer in every bag. It's like,
Okay.
yeah,
So, Kate, actually,
no one's going to be checking on you if you're doing that or not. Yeah.
I think as far as that, it's more just if there's sharing and maybe at like the end of practice, you don't need to be, we're not so worried about like
During.
of things and sharing. So just use your discretion, but I wouldn't be cleaning the bat after every player. Maybe just give it a wipe at the end of practice. But if everyone has their own bat, you don't need to do it anyway.
Yeah. Are you, Jesse, are you a T-ball safety officer?
I'm actually just the coach, the manager and the coach, but we had practice today and I didn't know about the COVID-19 stuff. So
no, that's okay. I mean, it's
bat and
knock on wood, it's like everything's getting better. Last year, like we were still wearing masks, not even using the dugout. So we are leaps and bounds from last year, but I didn't want to take it all out just yet.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
And if we just think about what the transmission, what we're worried about in terms of transmission, it's their hands, right? It's grimy, normally grimy kids' hands, and then getting it in their eyes and their nose and their mouth and their so hand hygiene. It's mainly the concern is hand hygiene.
Okay.
And making sure that they're staying as sanitized as possible.
I moved on to the health screening. Yep, you did too. Okay, so all team volunteers, players, parents, coaches should be self-screening for symptoms. Last year, if you guys remember, we did this like a screening on the app. We're not doing that this year. We're just asking you to screen for these symptoms. If you guys have symptoms, just report it to your team safety officer and don't come to practice. If you have any doubts or you're just worried, like, is this one of the symptoms? Just reach out to your safety officer. Safety officers reach out to me and Danielle if you don't know. But use common sense. If the kid is not feeling good, they shouldn't be in practice regardless whether it's COVID or not, right? So, so now the protocol. So any illness or COVID exposure should be reported to the safety officer and an incident report filled out. It's just going to help us keep track. So if they have an illness that isn't COVID, we still want you to and they're going to miss practice or a game, we still want you to be able to report that to your safety officer. What
is the purpose of that? And is this a requirement by the league, or what's causing that? Because I don't agree with it.
You don't agree with what? Sorry,
needing to fill out. This is Jennifer Greer. Needing to
Oh.
fill out an incident report for an illness.
If they're going to miss something, Jen. So if they're going to miss a practice or an event.
Well, like if it was my child and he was sick, I wouldn't want somebody inputting an incident report due to him being sick. That's like personal health information. So I'm just asking, where is the requirement coming from, and why do we have to do that?
I'll jump in here. Steve, go ahead.
Sure.
Steve, do you want to take it or do you want me to? Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No. So Jen, we're getting this dictated from District 39, which oversees our league. And their mandate's coming from Little League International on this. So again, it's not something that we're saying we want to do. It's something we're getting required to do.
In district, I'm sorry, I don't understand what District 39 is.
So District 39 oversees our Little League, like our specific Capitola-Soquel Little League. District 39 oversees what we do. So all these rules, the baseball rules, COVID stuff, all this is getting mandated down to us from District 39. We followed their rules. We're part of Little League International.
Okay, Little League International District 39 is where it comes from. And then can I find that in a book of requirements or something? I'd like to see it.
Yeah, it's on the Little League International website. And then there's a District 39 website that has COVID protocols and all that. Like I said, we have to submit. Kate and Danielle went through hours and hours to submit our league safety plan, which then gets reviewed and approved by Little League International. So it's not something that we're saying we want to do this. It's a requirement that's being thrown upon us, like all their other rules.
Okay, I'll review. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, and then so once if a kiddo has if they have had an illness or a COVID exposure, then you want to be cleared by the team safety officer and make sure that you guys are going to make sure that the protocols were followed. a COVID positive test. So an exposure doesn't mean that you can't, and nothing happens if you've been exposed. Really what happens is if you have any of the symptoms, that's what would like trigger us to follow the protocol. And so first things first, you're going to report it to the safety officer. The safety officer is going to notify the team that there was an exposure on their team. The team can continue to practice and play games. You're just going to have the parents notify you if if a kiddo comes down with symptoms on that team. If the kid has a positive test, right? We're not requiring testing at all through Cap-Soquel, but if your kiddo has symptoms, you're either going to test and let us know that it was positive or negative, or if they're COVID-related symptoms, we are going to require a 5-day quarantine. So you don't have to test, but if they do have symptoms, they are going to have to quarantine for 5 days before they're allowed to come back at practice or a game. And then, and that's regardless of vaccination status or if they're asymptomatic. So if a kiddo has a positive test, like I know some schools are still doing testing, public schools definitely are still doing testing. If a kid comes down with a positive test at school and they're asymptomatic, we're still requiring that you tell us about it. Okay. They're going to do the 5-day quarantine. If on day 6, they still have no symptoms, they are welcome back to practice. If they do acquire symptoms and they are not improving, so on day 5, they still have a fever and a cough, even though their quarantine is over, I would say they're not allowed back at practice at day 6 because they're not really improving yet. Okay, does that make sense? Next slide, Joy. So this was just an example that I threw out. Like I said, there's gonna be more than one scenario, but we'll be happy to guide you through the scenario that happens when it happens. But you have a kiddo on your team test positive. What happens next? The parent or the manager should notify you guys, the safety officer. You're going to ask, when was the positive test, right? You're going to notify the team of exposure. The day of the positive test is when you will start your 5-day quarantine. You're going to, if you decide to test, okay? You're going to follow up with the safety officer on day 5 prior to your return to participation. And then the safety officer is going to talk to the parent, find out what's going on, and then decide, can they go back to practice? Yes or no. Okay, that's kind of the guidelines that we're going to follow. But again, we are not saying you have to test. You do not have to test. But if they don't test, we have to treat it like a positive test. If they have the symptoms that are, mimicking COVID or sharing the same symptoms that COVID has.
Yeah, you have to
Okay.
rule out. You have to rule.
We have to rule it
COVID.
out. Yeah.
Rule out
Okay.
COVID or quarantine. And I'm just going to encourage everybody to. I got kind of a panicky call from our team that said, "Oh no, somebody told me that they had COVID, and what do I do now?" So before before something like that happens, it just look at the protocol. It's actually a lot easier once you kind of distill down like what Kate is saying here. It's not as it's not as frightening as I thought it was. Thought it would be, but I encourage everybody to do a little exercise, do a little fire drill for yourself, just so that you're prepared.
And then that's all I have. Any questions? Again, we're just here to help you guys. If you have, you have our cell phone and you have our email, you know how to get in touch with us. We're parents too. We're volunteers just like you guys are doing, just at a teeny bit higher level. And we're here to support you guys.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Amanda.
Yeah.
The thing about the batting and the kid who picks up the bat, can they go over that one more time, please?
So
I'll go ahead, Kate.
Okay,
So,
go for it.
so you have your kiddos up at bat, they hit, they drop the bat, they run to first base. Your on deck circle batter then grabs his bat out of the bat rack and runs up to go hit. The kid who's batting behind, or him or her,
Okay.
or they who are batting behind them, then run and grab the bat and they go take it and put it back in the back rack.
Got it.
So the technically you have your batter, you have your on deck batter, and then in baseball terms it's called the batter in the hole. So the batter in the hole is the one who goes and fetches, gets the bat.
Got it. And then because in single A we do have a catcher. So they're all required to wear a cup, males?
We recommend it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just from a safety standpoint.
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda.
Uh-huh.
Eric, I guess I have a question. Is that weird?
No,
So
go ahead.
so you're allowed to have an on deck batter in the circle, but they just
No.
cannot have a bat.
No, the on deck circle, the on deck batter is in the dugout.
Oh, okay. That's what I
They're in
thought.
the
So,
dugout, but so as soon as the player before them hits, that player then grabs their bat and starts going to home plate. And
I
then the
got you.
player who's batting after them then goes and grabs the bat and brings it back to the dugout.
okay. So my presentation was right. If you guys refer to the presentation at all, there is no on deck batter circle, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a safety issue.
Yeah.
Little League International does not allow for it anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's one question, Joy. Do you see it?
I see. Christina, yes, that
Yeah.
does apply to T-ball. And T-ball, the coaches can have the bats. And actually in single A, the coaches can do it as well. It's when we start getting to the umpires do not allow the coaches to touch the bats. Not that they won't from time to time, but that's a hard, fast rule.
Any other questions, you guys? Thanks for staying on. I know it's late. Everybody probably had a long day, but if there's something that you think of tonight or you don't understand, I was there last year. I was like, I don't know what just happened and I'm not going to remember any of this, but the safety officer last year was super awesome. She helped me and Danielle put this whole thing together again for us this year, even though she's not volunteering. So I feel like if we get a question that I don't know and Eric can't answer it, like Sherry will know. So just reach out if you have a question or something comes up later. No problem. Text is fine too. Just text and identify yourself. I don't know. Is text fine for you too, Danielle? Preferred. Yeah.
As the information officer, I get lots of questions that just are from everywhere. Generally, in terms of if you have parents that are asking you as the safety officer about COVID protocols or, or what's required, what's recommended, traditionally, I would say, look at the plan. The plan is a living document, as is the regulations, but that the Little League will always go with the guidance of the county, the state, public health orders, and Little League International. So that's kind of a canned response, but it's true. Things change, and last year we had a phenomenal season. We were able to. We had a lot more restrictions. We weren't able to use the dugouts. It was a lot more.
No snack shack. No snack shack. Come on.
No big league chew. So if you have questions and people ask you, we're here to support you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Joy, for helping facilitate the meeting too.
All right.
Good. Yeah, see you guys on the field.
Have a great evening, everybody.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Kate and Danielle. Enjoy.
Yeah. And we can stay on if we want to.
I'm going to stay for a second.
Yeah.
Sure.